Shabbat shalom, everyone. The story of Chanukah is such a great story. It's an amazing story. It makes for perfect drama. Here are our ancestors 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago, and the wicked Yevanim, the Seleucid dynasty, has taken over this province, this area of the ancient Near East where all of our ancestors are dwelling, trying to get all of our ancestors to become Hellenized. And of course, the Jews fight back. They defeat the idea of assimilation. They conquer the Greeks, the mightiest empire in the entire world. They fight them back. They rededicate the temple, and they light the menorah. It's a great story if it ends there. If we end the story right there, it's a perfect story. It's a beautiful story. It's got all the makings of the perfect story that we want. We've got a common enemy. We fight back. Everything's great. Everything is beautiful. But the story continues. The story continues from there. When the Hasmoneans take over the temple, it's a brief moment of celebration. But then, as Jews are wont to do, we start fighting with one another. Immediately. The Hasmonean kingship lasts for about 100 years. And those 100 years are filled with violence, with hate, with corruption, a lot of terrible things. The Hasmoneans take over the temple, and they say, we're bringing back the priestly service. And all the Pharisees say, great, which one of you is a Kohen Gadol? And they say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you look too much into it, you're not going to be happy, right? So there's all these Kohanim who start jockeying for a position to become the Kohen Gadol. Kind of sketchy yichus. Not entirely sure if they come from Aaron, the priest. And the Pharisees don't like it. And they start fighting. First verbally, theologically, and philosophically. But then they come to blows. And we don't talk about this part. There's years of civil war that comes from this. But the Sadducees and the Pharisees fighting each other, killing one another. We don't tell that story. But here's the problem. We need to tell that story. Because that's the important story of Chanukah. The other story that we have, the stories of the classic story of they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. We got those. We have plenty of those. We have Purim. We've got Pesach. We've got all these stories that give us that message. Chanukah is our opportunity to do something a little bit different. And it's important because the message from Chanukah is they tried to kill us, we survived, then we tried to kill us. And that's a message. It's an important message. Because if you haven't noticed, we're still lighting our Chanukiahs, which means that something changed. Which means that all of this fighting came to an end somehow. Because we're still here. We're still celebrating Chanukah together. And we're still telling the story that's leaving off a big chunk of the story, but we're still telling that story. And I think this is why it's important that we tell the second half of the story, because the only way that we can get to here, that we can get to right now, is by telling the parts that are really hard, including the parts that go like this. 100 years of civil war lead to both the Hasmoneans and the Pharisees trying to find a common ally in Greece. The very people that we were fighting against in the first place. Both of them go to Greece and say, help us gain our autonomy. Which eventually leads to the Roman conquest, which eventually leads to the destruction of the Second Temple. And our rabbis talk about this, and they say, why was the first temple destroyed? Avodah Zarah, idol worship. Why was the second temple destroyed? Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred of one Jew against another Jew. But the takeaway from that is in the destruction of the second temple, the biggest theological moment in all of Judaism happens. The rabbis come together and they say, we have two choices. That's the end of Judaism. We're done. We lost. Or we come together and we figure this out. They chose the latter. Sadducees, Pharisees, mystics, halachists, legal theorists, judges, everyone came together to say, we got to make this work. We got to figure it out. Otherwise, we're doomed. And sometimes we heed that information. Sometimes we take it and we learn from it. And other times we have tragedy and then we end up fighting with each other instead. Because it's easier when things are hard, when things are challenging, to blame one another and to blame ourselves instead of being able to unite and try to figure out a way where we can shine that light as bright as we possibly can together. So the story of Chanukah, the miracle of Chanukah, is not the Hasmonean dynasty. It's not the military victory over the mighty Greeks. It's that in a moment of such internal strife and fighting, we got over our narishkeit, we got over our shtuyot, and we came together and we tried to figure out how to make it work. Saul taught this morning this beautiful teaching from Timely Torah. We learn in the Talmud when we are lighting our Hanukkah that the rabbis tell us that each and every single night of Hanukkah, the way to really fulfill the mitzvah of Hanukkah is that you have to light one light. That's it. If it's night 1, if it's night 7, if it's night 8, one light, and you fulfilled your mitzvah. But the Talmud says that the Mehadrin, the people who go that extra mile, have a Hanukkah for every single person in their family, and every single person in their family lights one light. But then it goes a step further, and it says the Mehadrin of the Mehadrin, the people that are really, really, really at the top of their game, everyone in their family has a Hanukkah, and they light their candles according to each night that it is. 1 for night 1, 2 for night 2, etc., etc., etc. Around the world right now, my friends, Jews everywhere, conservative Jews, Orthodox Jews, Reform Jews, non-religious Jews, Tikkun Olamniks, Bundists, cultural Jews, are lighting their Hanukkahs. And we're all lighting it the same way. 1 candle on night 1, 2 candles on night 2, 3 candles on night 3. Because the story of Hanukkah is that we get it together. That we leave our labels and the different variations of what it means to be Jewish at the door. And we tell our story about how we're here. And how we're here is coming together and working together. That's us. So I'm going to use this opportunity now, I hope it's okay, to do a little pitch. Because in a few weeks, we have, with the thanks of the Peter and Clara Weisberg Concert Foundation, we have the opportunity to bring in this incredible musical group known as Nefesh Mountain. I don't know if you've seen the posters in the hallway. Come check them out. They have incredible music, but they also have one of my favorite melodies, Tahinei Matov, that I've ever heard. And those words are the words of Hanukkah. Hinei Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad, how good it is, how sweet it is for friends and family, for all of us, no matter who we are, to come and be together. So I'm going to play the song. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. We'll start with the nigun, and then we'll add the words. But I'll invite you to start singing along with me as soon as you feel comfortable to do so. So it starts like this. Try that with me. Hear the words. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Back to the nigun. Yai da dai dai da dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai da dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai da dai dai. One last time. Yai da dai dai da dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai da dai ya dai. Yai da dai dai. On this Shabbat Chanukah, may we light our Chanukiahs this evening and every evening, knowing that the story of Chanukah is a complicated one, but ultimately the message of Chanukah is Hinei ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, how good it is, how sweet it is for all of us to be able to be together. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.